Hi, this is Scott from Roland. I'm here today at Kraft Music, and we're checking out the JD-XA Crossover Synthesizer. For some great deals, you got to check out the Kraft bundles. The JD-XA is a brand new concept from Roland. It has two different types of engines. It's a brand new analog engine, and it's the highest level of DSP digital engine that we have to date. So on the analog side, we have 4 individual parts. Each part has 2 oscillators. Each oscillator has pulse width modulation. There's a nice mixer to separate the 2 oscillators. You have a variable analog filter and a variable digital filter. Now, everything can stay completely analog if you want, because we have separate analog output in the back. The real-time effects are digital effects, and the part effects are also digital effects. But as I mentioned, you can go completely analog and very pure, just go out the analog out, or you can utilize some very, very cool effects on the analog side. From the digital side, we have 4 synthesizers. Each synthesizer has 3 oscillators. So it can get really pretty big. So if you combine them together, we have the 4 analog parts, 2 oscillators each, and the 4 digital synthesizers with 3 oscillators each. So your sound is incredibly flexible. So for instance, let's just take a little bit of a listen to the analog side. So on this one, I just have one simple analog oscillator creating a kick drum. Pretty much straight ahead, you know, TR 909, 808 type kick drum. I'm going to add a little bit of reverb, delay on it. Pretty flexible for just a single kick drum. Now, also the filter is incredible. And the envelopes are just super crisp. Now, if you utilize both the analog and digital side, you can get a pretty complex and very, very flexible sound. So in this particular patch, I have the cutoff assigned to the expression pedal. Another very, very cool sound. It's all completely on the analog side. Is this really cool lead sound. Now, if I move the mod wheels, I go from a very unison sound to a very detuned supersaw type sound. So you can do some really cool ripping leads on that. And it's also really nice to have the wheels as well as the typical Roland bender. So you can kind of go either way you want. On this patch, this is kind of a cross mod kind of a thing, so I can really open it up with the wheel too. Add a little ring modulation. It gets pretty dense. Now this one is just a nice effect. So let's understand a little bit of how the architecture works with the JD-XA. Now there's 4 analog parts, as I mentioned. Now these analog parts can move completely independent of each other. As you can see over here that I have the 4th tone, and I have the blue dot over the 4th tone. That means that that tone is what I'm editing. Now if I go over here to the 1st tone and put the blue dot over the 1st tone, now I'm only editing this 2nd tone. So now I have a nice layer, a very, very cool texture sort of building. Now doing the same thing with the 3rd tone, and that one's up at the 5th. And the last one. Now you can still hear the character of each individual tone. Now if I wanted to edit all of them together, now I'm going to have a very, very uniform filter sweep. Now on the analog side, as I mentioned, there's 4 independent parts. But if I push the polystack button, now those 4 independent parts, they all unite together and they become polyphonic. So I have now a 4-voice chord. Now, what's really unique about the polystack mode is that, as you can see here, that on this particular tone, tone 1, and the blue button is over the tone 1, that particular tone has a characteristic all on its own. Now, tone 2 has a different characteristic, okay? But since the blue is over tone 1, it's going to be that sound that you're hearing, and then it basically just steals the polyphony from these other ones. So if I got this kind of a character, if I go over to tone 2, which is programmed a little bit differently, and I play the same chord, it takes over as the sound, and it still retains all the 4 voices of polyphony. So in reality, you can have one program that has 4 different pad types. It's really, really very useful. Again, just another very, very cool flexibility feature of the JD-XA. Okay, let's understand this digital analog crossover concept a little bit better. I have this sound that is very, very typically a digital sound. Bells. Now on the digital side, as I mentioned, it's our highest level of DSP technology. So the sounds on the digital side are much more flexible than your typical PCM-based waveforms. So with a simple filter sweep, this bell sound sort of turns into this. Pretty flexible. Now, let's do the same sound, but now I'm going to have more analog sounds built in. So I'll do the same filter sweep. Now check this out. Pretty cool flexibility. Let's do something really simple and very easy to understand. I'm just going to have one analog part, and I have white noise assigned to that oscillator. And I'm just going to create wind. Add some reverb. It's really nice to have these real-time effects over here because you can tweak and do all kinds of stuff to your sounds in real time. Now I'm going to add a sub, which is a pitchable sub. Now I'm going to go over to the mixer and turn on the oscillators that I have going through the ring modulator. Add a little LFO. Just kind of go backwards. Take the reverb off. Minus the sub. Back to nothing. Now with the analog side, you have 4 voices of polyphony, but you have 2 oscillators for each part. So it could be 8 total sounds, 8 oscillators. On the digital side, this is where you have all of your polyphony. Now you can call up a strictly digital sound, but you can run it through the analog oscillator, so it gets very, very full and very rich. Now remember, you have the analog side and the digital side, and everything cross-pollinates. The analog side can run like this, the digital side can run separately, or they can run together. They can go into opposite filters on each part, can be completely controllable, and it's really nice to have maybe a nice analog sound getting crunched up by the digital filter, or vice versa, the digital sound getting warmed up really nicely going through the analog filter. So I'm going to play this digital sound going through the analog filter. Here's a really cool and interesting way of using the JD-XA. Now what I did is I have a couple of analog parts and I just have noise assigned to them. And I've created a noise, sort of a noise rhythm. Okay? So that's the sound by itself. However, if you start to go into the pattern sequencer, which is 8 parts deep, so it's an 8-part sequencer internal, and you can also have 8 parts that go external. So essentially it's a 16-part sequencer. Okay, so now if I start to play this in a rhythmic sort of way, and then I can just record it in the sequencer. So if I have the parts going, you start really grunging, you just get a couple of things percolating, you know? Now this could be really cool if you put a drum groove on top of it. Now let's take a look at the actual pattern, how it's running in the sequencer. So if I hold the shift button, I can see what's going on here. Bar 1, bar 2. So we're looking at bar 1 right now, right here. Those are the events. Here's bar 2. Bar 1, but you're not, because we're not on it yet. Okay? Now, check this out. Let's go to bar 1 and let's just mute all the parts. So nothing going on in bar 1. Let's mute everything in bar 2. So it's absolutely nothing's happening, right? Now let's just create our own groove in real time. Bar 1, go to bar 2. You can change up as you're going. So this can be like a long, evolved jam, you know, synth jam. Now, the thing that, as I mentioned, that I have 8 parts that I can sequence internal. And by the way, I can sequence each of these 8 parts individually, or I can also sequence all of the knob twists and everything. Now, there's also CV gate out. So I can take the output of this and go into, for instance, the System 1M or any other modular stuff and just start tweaking. So I'm just going to turn up the volume here. Maybe I want to change the pitch a little bit. So now I have this completely different groove. So it's very organic and it flows really, really nice. Now, another thing that's very awesome is that, as you can see, that the look of the JD-XA is very, very cool, right? It's red, it's got a lot of flash, but in a lighted stage environment, it might be difficult to really know where things are. Well, the thing that's really nice about this is that you can go into the menu and you could change the lighting arrangement. So for instance, I go into the LED customize, and now whatever I turn on will light up. So what does that mean? That means that if I have a particular sound that I really like and I'm only going to tweak the choreography on that sound, maybe the filter envelope and the cutoff and the resonance, and then everything else can be dark. So that makes it really easy for me to tweak this stuff live on the stage. I don't even have to think about it. I just go, oh, the light is on, I'm good to go. So it's a very, very cool feature. So that's the JD-XA Crossover Synthesizer. I'm Scott from Roland here at Kraft Music, and don't forget to check out the Kraft bundles.